Hi, Misha here.
And this is Jay.
And this is our Labor Day Q&A. Isn't it great when things rhyme?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking we did that that futuristic Q&A where I showed up in a gas mask and with a bandolier of magazines on and stuff, and I was thinking that actually doesn't seem that inappropriate now.
I'm not even kidding, and we haven't said. I was thinking that this morning. I was thinking about early COVID stuff, and then I was thinking about the situation we're in. Yeah. I thought one good thing: toilet paper is gettable.
Yeah, that's true.
Stuff is gettable now, but
yeah,
the overall situation.
Not ammunition or guns.
No, yeah, we're getting into the real stuff now.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, last Q&A was 4th of July, so I guess it's kind of convenient that we usually have a holiday weekend about every 2 months in the USA, which is just a good time, and it's a little muggy outside. It's not all that hot, but it's a great indoor Q&A day, and yeah. We have 25-30 questions from you folks, so we're gonna knock them out as usual. This is open to anyone who donates on Patreon, $1 or more a month, and you can ask 1 or 10 questions, please not 100, but we'd probably answer them. But yeah. Hello, cat. This is a new cat. Say hi, Cash. He was actually a college friend's cat who had to get rid of him, and somehow we're the cat sanctuary now. Anyway, yeah, so bucken up. You can participate here. Greatly appreciate it. If you can't, that's cool. Just liking and subscribing is great support. And $5 and up, you can order videos, and $10, you pretty much get a direct line to ask us questions, and we pretty much try to answer them within a day or two, normal times.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep. All right, well, we are going to go ahead and...
We're going to dive in, folks. I'm hungry.
I'm closing the current thread, and then before we finish recording this one, I'll upload a new one just so we can keep track. So we're going to start with a guy by the name of Lucian. Hi guys, hope your summer is going well. Thanks, Lucian. You too. Did Bulgaria ever field an equivalent to the AKS-74N, the triangle stock with scope rail? Bonus for fun. Misha and Jay, I know you're Star Trek fans, but how about Star Wars? If so, what's your favorite firearm/blaster within that universe?
I didn't realize those were the same question.
Yeah.
Since my hand's on it, I always like an excuse to bring out my Sterling here. This is a Mark 6. I love this gun. I love the odd look. I love shooting it. I love that it's in 9mm. The mags are cool. This shows you what the British could have made the Sten gun if they had time. That they weren't poor engineers. They just had war. And obviously, Stormtrooper gun. And these are pretty easy to modify into Stormtrooper guns too. So it's a nice fun thing, and the guns are available thanks to all the kits. There are some pre-bands, but most you'll find will be Wise Light builds or otherwise kit builds. But yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite. I might have said the broom handle before the movie Solo. Not really, but no, definitely the Sterling.
Yeah, that's same with me. That's the Stormtrooper blaster, and then being able to actually get those relatively easy compared to a lot of the other real guns like MG42s and stuff that they used in those movies is pretty neat. Even the flare gun that Boba Fett uses is difficult to get. I think because of Star Wars, a lot of people know that flare gun specifically, and so the prices on them are crazy.
What was the Rebel blaster like? What was the DD-44? Not Han Solo's, but the other one like they used at Hoth. What was that based on?
I don't remember.
Let's just say Calico.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, no, it's just neat, and it looks the part. It fits very well.
There is a DL-44, which was Han Solo's.
Gotcha. Well, I can't remember them. Fun story about the Sterling here. When I was doing guns for a long time, one of my hang-ups was I call them sticky addy barrels. Guns, if the barrel had to be extended to 16 inches, because back in the day, in the 80s and even 90s, they didn't really do the pistol thing much, and if they did, it usually had a dinky 5 or even 4-inch barrel like the SP-89. So most of them had an extended barrel. And it really turned me off. And this is before SBRs were easy to get. The Sterling was the first gun that made me go, you know what? The gun is so cool that even though the barrel annoys me, I can't say no to one. Right. And that's why on this one I've got a shroud from E&L clamped on. These are cool because they have the same basic texture, and they don't use 4 screws to set on your barrel. They actually have a collar that tightens on your barrel, which is far less likely to mar it.
Yeah.
So if you have a pre-ban, I wouldn't recommend SBRing it, but maybe something like that's a good way.
The Rebel Blaster pistol appears to be a Sterling pistol.
Okay, yeah, the Mark 7, which makes sense because they're in the same universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
Back to the first question.
Yeah, yeah, that was more fun. Yeah, and I know what you're asking. This is the Arsenal SLR 104 FR. Yeah, I put plum on it, as you know, but yeah, it has the side folding stock, making it an AKS 74, and it has the rail, which is the N. I don't know if they ever made them in-house, but see, Bulgaria had a ton of guns that were sent over from Russia, either as complete guns, or that were sent over as parts that they assembled at the Arsenal factory. There was kind of a transitional period between 83, 84, and 85, 86, where they were shifting over. And even then, when Tula kind of packed up production, a lot of parts from Tula kind of ended up going to Bulgaria. So I don't know. It was a pretty specific model, but I would, if you made me say, I think yes, because if memory serves, back when these Bulgarian, or at least kits from Bulgaria were coming in, I think I do remember seeing a few side folding rail kits, but that could be me misremembering. But I don't know for sure, but if I had to guess, I'd say there were a small number, because why not?
Lance says, "Hello guys, hope you guys are doing well and staying safe." You too, Lance, thank you. Recently my uncle passed away and I inherited his collection.
Lance.
Yeah. I inherited his collection of old firearms and I'm overwhelmed with 60 plus firearms added to my already growing collection. These firearms are mainly rifles like 30-40 Krags, M1917 Enfield, M1 carbines, various hunting rifles made prior to the 70s, plus lots of Remington rolling
I'm being honest, when you pre-read that question, I thought you said manly rifles, not mainly rifles, and I was thinking, okay, some, but M1 carbine?
He says manly rifles.
Oh, he does say manly, okay.
Yes. 30-40 Krag's a manly rifle.
I'll give that, I'm saying M1 carbine.
Okay.
I love how soft they shoot.
Lots of mainly men carried it around. Anyway.
Man.
Plus lots of Remington rolling blocks and Winchester lever actions, not counting a few of the oddball unknowns.
Those are always fun.
Should I keep this collection and sit on it, or possibly trade or sell most of this collection to get things I want? What would be the best way to go about selling or trading if I decide on going down that path? I will probably keep about 10 to 15 firearms out of the collection no matter what. I'm looking to expand my CZ collection and acquire a Beretta BM59 and a few AKs. Thanks guys and stay safe.
Yeah, that's why I brought out my BM59. So when you said that kind of got me. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah. I like the BM59 better than the M1A by a long shot.
Oh yeah. I like it better than some like G3s and FAOs. Not all, but some. Try not to poke you here.
You're good.
Yeah, it's a great gun. It sounds like you already know what you want to do, and that's cool. I support it. If I inherited 60 guns because their taste weren't my taste, I would definitely sell off some.
I'd be paring down what I want. Yeah.
I would keep maybe a couple if you knew they meant a lot to him, or they mean something to you, or they fit your collection, but they are still objects.
Yep. Exactly.
And, you know, you can keep a couple to honor him, but 60 is kind of pointless. I mean, I know which ones I would keep out of that and which ones I would sell, but we're all different folks. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would definitely sell what doesn't interest you. On the other hand, keep in mind, once you sell it, it's gone. So just make sure it's what you want to do.
Yeah, that you're happy with the price that you get out of it, because the last thing you want to do is sell something just because you can flip it for a low price now and then realize that you'll never be able to buy one for that price later down the road. I would say if there's any Remingtons in there with the recent Remington news, it may behoove you to set on them for a brief period of time to see where, because that might go up. I don't know. Yep. They don't make Winchesters anymore. The brand's still around, but the gun company's long gone. M1 carbines, they seem pretty stable, so although I have noticed the CNR market's a little down right now because of current stuff. So,
kind of your call is to where to sell them. I definitely wouldn't go to, unless there's a gun store you really know and trust, just going into a gun shop and saying, what will you give me for all these is not going to net you the best. Yeah, definitely research beforehand. You can sell as an individual on GunBroker. Just know that a lot of FFLs won't receive from individuals. So kind of familiarize yourself not only with the federal laws, but your state laws about shipping, selling guns. If you want, you can shoot me an email. I do consignments and sell collections. I mean, I got a plug business at some point, but I'm not saying use me. But if you want, I usually do a reasonable commission and whatnot and do that. But yeah, typically with older guns, you'll get a better price online. If you do like arms list and stuff, just use your noggin, common sense, meeting up with people.
Right.
Because, yeah. But sorry about your family member, but it happens. And yeah, I don't feel guilty about wanting to sell off 30 or 40 of his guns. I'm sure he would have done and maybe did something in his youth the same way. They're just objects.
Yep. Alrighty, Dave says, really enjoy the channel. I have a Galil Ace chambered in 7.62x39 and enjoy most everything about it with a couple exceptions. My booger hook is tired of getting slapped around. Never experienced trigger slap before. Can't say I like it much. Is the ALG the only aftermarket trigger that will work with the Ace, or are there other triggers available? The ALG has been sold out every time I get around to looking. Also, I don't care for the proprietary stock. Any suggestions? Hope you guys keep up the awesome work on the channel for many years to come. Be safe and take care. Thanks, Dave. Blake did respond to your question in this, just so you know, and said that you can add apparently a South African R4 stock as well.
Yeah.
So if you want a longer length of pull.
It is significantly longer. It's also lighter because it's mostly polymer. Mm-hmm. It has a metal core, don't worry, but...
He says it's an easy swap out installation.
Oh, very easy. I've done it.
KNS Precision also has adapters. I think Stormworks also has an adapter to be able to put AR stocks, buffer tubes on it to be able to use AR
it's
stocks.
Just a spring-loaded pin.
Yeah.
That's held in with an E-clip. You basically just press it up with a punch, pop your clip off, it comes right off. So that part, and in the whole block can be taken out of the back of the receiver with a big roll pin.
Right.
So you can even take that off.
Yep.
As for the trigger, that's unusual. I've always thought the triggers that came in the Aces were fine. IWI says they're matched triggers, and they're very well machined triggers.
Yeah, I'd say the pull is a little heavy on them.
It's a military trigger still, yeah. But it's very smooth.
I actually don't know of any other, I'm not going to say there's not, I just don't personally know of any other triggers available for it besides the ALG.
And would that really fix the trigger slap issue?
The ALG should reduce it. Okay. Yeah. And I have two Aces and I've not had trigger slap.
Yeah. I've got one Ace and older, and I've got the South African, which the older guns use the same semi-auto trigger group, and I haven't noticed it, but you know, it does vary on the ammo, especially maybe if you're trying to shoot suppressed. I'm not sure what you're doing.
Could just be different. Mm-hmm. I mean, could just be a different trigger or something in there.
Could be.
Who knows? Yeah. I have been seeing the ALG lately. I don't know where they're at now. AKOU, I know, had them. I've seen them come back in stock on Optics Planet and stuff like that. So they're out there. It's just a matter of the best thing you can do is just get on out of stock alerts on them and sign up for
I don't know if I've got any kicking around. If I had one in the parts bin, I'd trade it for that Galil trigger because I need a Galil trigger pack.
Yeah.
I'll look and see if I've got one.
There you go. Next question is from Wolfie. How useful is installing the AK retainer plate many people advocate for? Any discernible difference between the quality of AK grips from country to country? And lastly, if Germany in World War II issued mass MP44s from the onset and the Allies did not copy the technology, how would the course of the war have changed? So let's start with the first one. How useful is the AK retainer plate?
I love them.
Same. I immediately pull, anytime I get a new AK, I pull the shepherd's hook or the little clips out and put a retainer plate in. I have a stack of retainer plates for that purpose.
And if you look at the semi-auto Molot and the Vepers, which are considered to be among the highest, from Russia, they have retainer plates. They make getting your trigger group in and out easy, which if you want to swap it, or maintenance. And also, they won't bend out of shape and let a pin walk out like those wire hangers. Even on like pre-bang guns, those wire hangers can come out of notch. No, they're so easy to do.
Right. Yeah, those things are such a pain in the butt to put back in, get lined up right and everything, and then a lot of times what I've noticed with those is they end up scratching the inside of the receiver really bad when you're putting in and out, if you care about that at all. And it's those retainer plates just work so much better.
They hold it firmly. They're not going to bend or let it. It's just there's essentially 99% no way for those pins to walk out if you install the plate properly. That said, know that different models like the M70 Yugoslavians, underfolders, some side folders may need a different trigger plate. So I found like the more bow-shaped ones are more universal. The more ones with the squared off bottom, like the Tapco style, sometimes they don't fit every single gun perfectly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Second question was the discernible difference between quality of AK grips.
Obviously, newer ones are going to be sturdier. The earlier wood is wood, and it does wood things. Ice machine. And some of the early Bakelites, for example, I don't know why, but the early Egyptians seem kind of fragile. Whereas like the early Romanians, you can tell if one's breaking apart. It has a lot of cotton fiber in it, which really keeps it together. Like on this gun here, this is when they went away from Bakelite on the plum here to kind of the newer polymer, and then even past this, they went to a reinforced nylon type material. So the newer ones, like out of Russia and stuff, tend to be really, really quite durable. So generally, they're all about the same, but if I had to pick maybe the ones known for being a little weaker, I'd say maybe the Egyptians and whatnot. But they've definitely made them stronger over the years, in at least marginal ways.
Yeah. And then lastly, Germany in World War II, if they had issued mass MP44s from the onset and the Allies did not copy the technology, would the course of the war have changed, or how would it have changed?
Well, obviously it would have changed. It would have been more protracted, but small arms don't make or break a war.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of my thinking is by the time the MP44 came around and by the time it would have really ramped up in production, I think it would have been, like you said, might have extended the war.
Earliest they probably, I mean, let's say Hitler just loved it and it didn't have any political infighting in the Third Reich, and it could just, as soon as it was ready, they really didn't have the technology. For one thing, they didn't have the cartridge ready until 1939, 1940 at the earliest. And then the stamping tech to make that gun really wasn't evolved until after the MP40 was put into production. I don't see any way that gun could have been mass produced before 1942. Probably 1943. At that point, they'd already steamrolled through France, they'd gone through Russia. It doesn't change the fact that their sea power was limited and that the Allies had air superiority. So it would have basically have delayed the Allies. It would have, been useful perhaps at D-Day, definitely during the Battle of the Bulge, certainly when the Soviets were marching towards Berlin, they were taking heavy, but they weren't going to stop.
No. Yeah, that's the thing I was thinking, was that it wouldn't have, a few 100,000 more Russians might have died, but it wouldn't have, it wouldn't have
higher casualties maybe on the German side too, because they'd fight longer. Also keep in mind the supply logistics. They had plenty of MP44s at the end of the war. What they were short on were magazines and ammunition. So
probably not a whole
No, guns don't win wars. And air power, and that's really where Germany fell behind. They'd never really developed a long-range heavy bomber like the Allies did. And that became an air war.
And then fuel restrictions and all that stuff. Like, had lots of tanks. But
funny how when you basically piss off the rest of the world, things don't go your way.
Michael says, keep up the good work, gentlemen. Thank you, Michael. Now that Colt has resumed making rifles for the commercial market, are you hearing of any new models? I'm reading rumors that the AR-6720 will be discontinued. Thanks.
People say, Last year when that whole thing came out saying they weren't, I tried to tell people then, all they were saying was a temporary halt. I think that was just a stupid PR move to even tell people.
Yeah.
They started to ship at the beginning of this year, but then COVID, I haven't seen any new Colts since then. What I've heard, more of the 6920s, be it the 16-inch or the SOCOMs, the 14 with the pin barrel, and also more AR-15A4s.
Yeah.
That's all I've heard. I don't know that they're going to do new models, but
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they basically canceled most of their line de facto, like the 6940 anyway, and the 9mm guns like the 6951 have always been limited production. So I don't know what Colt's going to do. I mean, Remington fell, Colt. I'm surprised they're still around.
Yeah, same.
Especially in Connecticut.
Yep. Andy says, hello there, M and J. What is your guys' personal take on to why AR pistols and 45 ACP have not really gotten up in popularity compared to ARs and 9mm? I'm guessing that 9mm is just more plentiful, cheaper and plentiful per se than 45.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a couple of things with that. You kind of hit the nail on the head with one. I generally think that 9mm is more popular in the commercial market than 45 is. And we kind of talked about this earlier, but magazines are a big thing. Because right now there are extended 9mm magazines are starting to kind of pare down a little bit, so they're becoming more universal. So you have things like, the Glock 1719 extended mags. You have effectively the Scorpion has started kind of getting around, the Evo mags, and then Uzi or Colt SMG style mags are all still really common.
Yeah.
So in a lot of guns, if they want to be successful, if the subgun wants to be successful in 9mm, a lot of times they have to use one of those mag setups, because otherwise it's going to be a very limited market for them.
Yeah, and we were talking before about the AR-15 scaling. Yeah, you can do 45 in it, but it's not really well suited the way you have to modify the internals and stuff. But keep in mind the 9mm AR-15s started off as police military contract guns, and militaries weren't wanting a 45 submachine gun, nor were most police departments.
Yeah.
So you kind of have that original backing to help them get started. It's just not really a thing. I think a lot of it has to do with ammo cost. Also, the accuracy of 9. The way the 9mm NATO cartridge is, out of a longer barrel, be it 8, 10, or even 16 inches, you can get better range, better groups. 45, because it's a slow, heavy bullet, going to a longer barrel doesn't give you a huge performance boost.
That makes sense. Yeah. So a few reasons.
I think also maybe suppressors. There's definitely 45 suppressors and it suppresses well, but a lot of folks own 9mm suppressors and they get put on PCCs a lot.
Right. Yeah. It's probably, easy. You've already got your Glock. You can grab a PC9 or whatever else and throw now you've got same ammo, same mag, different gun. So.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just kind of what people want.
Yep.
What's attractive.
Guy says, hey guys, when is the big AK Operators Union / Michiko extravaganza going to be accomplished? I check YouTube twice a day for this. Just kidding about the twice a day. Thanks.
When you know the situation, I will say I think I'm having an influence on Rob, though. He's getting more into old guns. He's been very intrigued by the SVT-40, but also he's wanting to get like a Finnish Mosin. So I think I'm wearing on him as far as getting him into older stuff. It's just been one of those years there hasn't been much new in the AK market. Yeah, I know the PSA gun supposedly dropped this week, but anyway, there hasn't been much of what was seen at SHOT Show actually hit the market, at least in numbers, and what's come in has been small, but it's mostly just the limited travel, and meeting is hard because where are you going to take them to lunch? Where are you going to take them to dinner? Even just stopping in a gas station these days can be iffy.
Yeah.
It's just difficult.
Not a good traveling and meeting up time frame.
Unfortunately, no, but it gives everyone, including us, something to look forward to.
Yep. Robert says, "Hey Misha and Jay, two-parter. Guns, music, sci-fi. How do you explain the love and passion for these hobbies to those who don't share the enthusiasm and often ask what's the point from a hobby perspective? Secondly, what is a good source material to watch/read regarding 545 by 39 battle effectiveness and anecdotes of its effectiveness at range? You guys are class acting your material combined with the off-channel always take me down nostalgia lane. Thank you for sharing this content and information. You can't imagine how much myself and others look forward to every video. If you ever come to Maine, swing by for a brandy coffee."
Actually, a friend moved there. Why don't we take a little break on this one?
Yeah, sure. We'll let that one ruminate for a bit.
Yep.
Guns, music, sci-fi hobbies, and 545 battle effectiveness. And
for you, it'll be 5 seconds. For us, we're going to take a couple.
Be a little bit longer.
Alrighty, we're back. Yeah, sci-fi, music, and guns. Yeah, I have got to admit, I don't really do a whole lot with music anymore. Especially, I tend to just listen to what I already have. But yeah, I do check on sci-fi as much as anything's being turned out right now.
Yeah,
kind of the same with guns. Whenever they do things.
Yeah, for me, I've never had to explain my enthusiasm for anything because I always feel like my enthusiasm for different stuff, the different things that I'm really enthusiastic about, are extremely nerdy. So I tend to just assume that people have no interest in hearing anything about it. So I tend to not bring it up. But then, I mean, inevitably, when people are asking you what you like to do for fun, or they learn somehow that you're into certain things, I found that people will tend to kind of actively want to talk to me about it and engage me. So I have people that I'm not going to say I have very little relationship with personally that text me every once in a great while, every few weeks, I'd say asking me about a certain gun, or have I heard about this, or is this a good price for this thing, or something like that. And I can't think of a single instance where I've actually gone up to that person, to any of these people, and said, "Hey, I'm really into guns. Hey, let me explain to you why guns are cool." It's just kind of seems like it happens organically.
In fact, if I know someone, friend, family, who I know guns make uncomfortable, I go out of my way not to talk about them because I have plenty of people. I guess I just look for communities.
Yeah.
I have my things, and I don't think you need to justify anything. Obviously the answer to why is why not. I mean, if you want to get philosophical, the whole thing about life is why. Why do you work? Why do you sleep? Why do you have sex? Why do you eat? Why? It's all why. You can play that Socrates game all day long. If it makes you happy, if it brings you pleasure, if you learn things from it, if it helps you relax and just be a better, more well-balanced person in your day-to-day life, that's reason enough.
Yep.
In fact, I find the boring, the dullest, and frankly, either just apathetic or unhappiest people are those that don't really have hobbies.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never really understood the hobby snob thing of people looking down on. I know when I was growing up, my dad always hated the fact that I played video games. But then he would come home and play online poker for 4 hours or watch TV for 4 hours before bed. And it was like, it's the same thing. I mean, we're both just trying to get through our life until we die.
Yeah.
We're just trying not to die of boredom between now and then.
Well, I think, being stimulated intellectually or other, it's a good thing. So, and no reason to have to justify. You be you, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just be yourself. Don't worry about it. Secondly, what is a good source material to watch or read regarding 545 battle effectiveness and anecdotes of its effectiveness at range?
I really don't know. I mean, there's not, honestly, a lot of material out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't feature very heavily in a lot of the big documentaries, and I think part of it is its penetration into the market was pretty limited. It was only really starting to spread out when the Warsaw Pact collapsed and communism ended.
Right.
So when most of the nations kept on using 7.6239 or briefly used 5.45 and then switched to 5.56. And of course, too, it depends on the loading, the gun it's being fired from. There are so many factors.
Yeah.
And then even when you find firsthand accounts, especially when you hear all these crazy, you have to take them with a grain of salt, because there are outliers. There are crazy things that happen all the time with ballistics.
Yeah. Yeah, this seems like something that if and or when we start seeing a lot of AK-74s come out, something that maybe like Horowski might get more into, because right now the limitation is ammunition, and I know people are like, oh, you can get ammunition for it all day, because that's every time anybody mentions ammunition and AK-74s, that's the comment. But the limitation is readily available, wide selection of ammunition and ammunition types, 4.5 and loadings, and people to go out and pull the trigger on them right now. So I think if that changes with this glut of imports, or not imports, I should say, but these domestic made AKs and 5.45, then we might start getting more data and feedback on that, because I suspect the people that have the most trigger time with 5.45 are Russian military, and we don't hear a whole lot from Russian military on 5.45.
Well, and I'm not saying they don't do studies and testing,
Sure
but they don't do it in the way you might be thinking.
Right.
It's a different thing.
Yeah. Different.
And even if you do get all these U.S. guns coming out, you have to remember it's out of a U.S. barrel, and how that, because they do their rifling in the metrics and millimeters, and if you look at, say, a Romanian 5.45 bullet versus one that might have been made in Poland back in the Tantal era, or one made in Russia, they made their bullets slightly different. They're different weights, so there are so many factors.
Yep.
That's a big, long way of us saying
We don't know.
we don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Tim Bone says, greetings from the war-torn city of Chicago. Thanks for the great content during these crazy times. I have a gun fantasy question for both of you. If you could go back in time and return with any firearm to the current day, including large amounts of ammo and magazines for it, which one would you pick?
You come up with any?
Yeah.
What do you think?
This is something you can actually get if you want to spend multiple tens of thousands of dollars still. But I would love to have an original Thompson submachine gun, a 1928 with a cuts compensator, and the foregrip, the typical Chicago typewriter.
The foregrip would be 28. Yeah.
So I have actually fired one of those in full auto. It was actually the very first machine gun that I ever shot, and loved it. It's extremely fun to shoot. The full autos are nowhere near as heavy as the semi-auto reproductions, and it's extremely controllable in full auto. Just a ton of fun. I have to basically realize that I'll never have a full auto one of those, just because they're too insanely expensive. So yeah, I would like to be able to. That would be probably the first thing I would go get back in time, is go pick up an original full auto Thompson.
There are a lot of old historical guns that would be neat to have, but if you're talking, let's say one you actually want to shoot and whatnot, I would have to say a Japanese Type 100 submachine gun.
Oh yeah.
And if I could, I'd get there's basically three major variants. You get an early war, a late war, and then a paratrooper. So if I could fudge it and get all three, but he said plenty of ammo and mags, and those are just as hard to find, especially the mags, as the guns. But that would be one that would really just pop right into my collection. And frankly, 8mm Nambu is a lot of fun to shoot.
Yeah. Second, probably an STG 44 for me, I'd say.
Not me.
Yeah, I know. But hey, ammo too.
Ammo.
Yep.
G11 would be kind of cool to have. If we're going to do that, yeah. That'd be another one. Kind of neat.
Yeah.
Because you'd have tons of ammo for it.
Right. Joseph says, hello, Misha and Jay. I'm a proud new Bren 2S owner. I thought I was getting an MS, but was pleasantly surprised with the S. The serial number markings indicate it was made in 2020. I was surprised they were still importing the 2S after the initial prepper gun shop allocation. Anyways, I don't know the thread pitch on the muzzle flash hider. I found an old thread online where someone took a picture of their flash hider, and it clearly had 1/2x28 written on their muzzle device on their initial run import of the 2S chambered in 7.62. Mine does not have that marking. I've been reading the threading on the Bren 2S can be threaded in 1/2x28, 5/8x24, or 14x1 left hand. I did see a thread where someone said CZ quietly went to 5/8x24 on all 7.62 MS models, but I'm wondering if that also applies to the new runs of the 2S. Any idea on if there is a standard thread pattern for 2020 runs of the 2S and 7.62x39?
The thing about the Bren 2 and 7.62x39, that's not for the Czech military. That gun in Select Fire is for contract, French or Egyptian or what have you. So I would imagine they'll thread them whatever the customer wants. And by extension, oftentimes on those pistols, they'll put whatever barrels they have kicking around.
Yeah.
So chances are that those are contract overrun guns. And obviously countries, if they were using AKs, they'd prefer 14x1 left hand. If they're using M16 M4s, they might be 1/2x28.
Yeah.
You know. So I think it could vary because again, the 2S by its nature is not a standardized gun, according to CZ.
Yeah. Angel says, "Hey guys, do you have a preference in gun importers and the locations where they place importation marks? Some companies have horrible reputations like RTI and sell customers junk. As dealers, do you guys send back or bite the bullet?"
I don't send back because I never had any. I don't buy from RTI as a general rule. I do usually wait to see the quality of an import. Obviously, if it comes in trash, I will send it back.
Yep.
But it's usually better just to see what other people are getting first and then kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously we don't want import marks in gaudy places or in huge font. I've noticed they've been doing a lot better with pistols. I really like it when they do it on the underside of the trigger guard or whatnot. I guess if you're going to do it, I'd rather have it on the like bottom somehow. I mean, on a rifle, on the barrel is always best. I've even seen some kind of marked up in the mag well, depending on the gun, on the model of gun. Mm-hmm. You can do a halfway tasteful import mark. It's just big companies choose not to because it's more money and time.
Yeah.
And if you're importing thousands upon thousands of Mosins, you're not going to take the time to very gently engrave a mark to the bare minimum ATF specs in the best place possible. But if you're importing something special, why not?
Yeah. As far as sending things back for being junk, I know for me on the consumer side of that, more often than not, when I've got something that was kind of borked out of the box, it was something that I just ended up fixing myself. I mean, my VZ 2008 Century gun, that's the first gun I bought punches to fix because I had never done any kind of gunsmithing work at all before and ended up learning a lot about how to fix things.
Yeah, usually with like AKs, that's my attitude too. Got a canted front sight, just fix it. I mean, the trouble of boxing it up, getting a label, sending it back, it's just, if it's something, now if the gun needs to be just replaced, that's
if you have like a misaligned barrel or something like
that. I don't mind fixing it myself because frankly I would trust me or whoever I pick to do it for me more than probably some minimum wage person in a shop.
Might get it and just turn it right back out with the same or a different problem.
Well, and they probably they'll be handed a gun saying fix this and they may not even be told what the issues are.
Right.
Because you're not talking directly with the person usually who's fixing your gun. Sometimes you have to go, okay, look here, and then they see it. But I'm very hesitant to use warranties, and I usually don't because I just tend to research stuff before buying.
Just depends on what the problem is, how easy it is to fix.
But I think when it says junk, I'm thinking more like surplus guns that are supposed to be in, say, very good condition that come in as fair. Just, if they're rusty, just send it back.
Yeah. Frankie says, how useful do you think interchangeable barrel systems are like the ones on the SCARs and LMT rifles? Also, do you believe the rigidity of LMT-style monolithic uppers makes them a better choice than standard AR handguard and receiver systems?
I don't mind interchangeable barrels. I mean, they're useful on guns like the AUG. Sometimes they really are a gimmick, but on some guns like the AUG, if nothing else, they make cleaning and whatnot easier, and it's always nice to be able to swap them out. I mean, that's why some LMGs and most heavy machine guns have them. There are other reasons to have them, so it's definitely a neat feature, but I never buy a gun with the idea, I can buy caliber conversion kits, because usually the cost of the kit ends up so much that you could almost just get a second gun.
And that's assuming they actually release a conversion kit for it. Like, I can't think of how many times that's happened where it's been like, yeah, this gun's got a quick change barrel system and you can swap out all these different calibers in it, and then nothing ever happened. Like, they released the one gun in that caliber and then they never release anything else.
It's because they hit the same thing. They realize, okay, we can either make another gun and sell a whole other gun, or we can make a conversion kit. The economy of scale just doesn't usually work out.
Yeah.
Now, if it's literally just a drop-in barrel for like a pistol, that might be more practical. But most guns, you'll need a barrel assembly, a bolt group, maybe a magwell.
Yeah. What about LMT monolithic handguards?
You know anything about
Monolithic
those?
uppers.
'Cause I don't know anything.
If I'm being completely and perfectly honest, I also don't know anything about
Okay,
those.
Chris Bartocci, Small Arm Solutions.
Yeah.
Ask him. LMT is one of his favorite brands. Anywho, we mostly, especially me, do military guns, and so the only handguards even similar to that would be like my Daniel Defense Mark 18 pistol.
I was thinking, didn't Colt do monolithic uppers as well?
They did the 6940.
Yeah. Yeah, do not know. Let me see. Matt says, "Hi Misha and Jay. Thanks for all the great content. I feel like with AKs, people usually scoff at cleaning and maintenance, but as with all things, maintenance is important. With that being said, how long do AK recoil springs last? Additionally, how many rounds will a good CHF/CL barrel in 7.62x39 be able to handle? Thanks and stay safe." Thanks, Matt. You too.
With both of those questions, I would say, are we talking semi-automatic or full auto rounds? Also, I'd have to think environment. You know, hot. Is it an incredibly hot or incredibly cold? Because wear and tear.
Yep.
Is it fired totally dry? Has it been lubed? That.
Right.
But I'll say this: I've had old AK kits from the 50s, and the recoil spring still's fine. They seem very long-lived.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I've never changed a recoil spring out on an AK because it was malfunctioning because of a recoil.
Yep.
Ever.
I know people do it sometimes because they want an extra power spring. That's usually a different issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as barrels, that question comes up, and that's really a full auto versus semi-auto, because a barrel may only make it 15,000 rounds in full auto before showing some major wear, but in semi, it might make it to 30 or even 40.
Yeah.
And of course, cleaning. Some people, cleaning's good. You need to do that, but people can over-clean and actually put wear on barrels too, which is why a lot of old guns end up counterbored. So if it's cleaned properly, not too much, not too little, and care is taken, again, I've seen lots of pretty old kits, and seen a lot of old guns too that the rifling looks gone, but they still somehow shoot pretty straight.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, if you can afford to shoot it that much, you can usually afford to either rebarrel it or just buy a new gun.
Yeah. Most of these guns are going to outlive you.
Yep.
Function. Like, you'll be gone before they start to see a significant amount of failures because of shooting them a bunch, unless you just try to burn them out.
Yeah, and like my first AK has the most rounds through it, the SAR-1, which is 10,000 or so now.
Yeah.
The thing is, most of that was put on early on. As I've acquired more AKs as time has gone on, it's gotten exponentially smaller, and that's usually what happens. The first 2 to even 5,000 might go quickly, but then the next 5,000 are going to go slower and slower.
Yes. And also, like, if you're shooting competitions and you're shooting 50,000 rounds each or something,
sure,
you're going to burn barrels out.
But usually those will burn out quick because they're made for accuracy, and barrels made specifically for accuracy do burn out quicker by their nature.
Hyatt says, "Hi Misha and Jay, just curious what your opinions are of the new production Walther PPKs, or if you guys have handled one. They seem pretty close to the originals, minus the melanite finish, extended beaver tail, and half American, half German production. Thanks again for the great videos and keeping us entertained during the duration of the lockdowns." Thanks, Hyatt.
Sure. Obviously, I do like PPKs. I don't have any in the new ones because honestly, I don't need one. I've had this Walther Manurin one for ages. I've got a pre-war PPK that came in on trade-in a couple of years ago, and then I've got a Dural one. And then I have a PPKS that's West German marked, but actually it's French. So I don't really know. I've handled them. They seem fine. I mean, it's a blowback 32 or 380. Obviously, the extended beaver tail was done for the slide bite thing.
Yep.
That's because when these were made, people didn't try to choke the chicken by going way high. The grip style was different back then. Plus, I think probably hands were generally smaller in Europe back then. And it was meant to be a concealed carry gun. For the full size, you had the PP. I brought this one out to kind of say that while in 1930s and 40s, yeah, these were made in Germany, the PPK has been outsourced for a very long time in France. Hungary has produced it under license as the PPKE. Smith & Wesson's got in on the game. You had Ranger that made them for inner arms here in the 80s. So it's nothing new, and I'm sure by now, as old of a design as it is, I'm sure they're fine.
Yep.
In my experience, the 32s are always more reliable than the 380s, and that's what the gun was originally made for. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Walther's good company.
Yeah, I'm sure they're fine. Yeah, got a warranty. As I say with any new gun, when you get it, just try to get to the range as soon as you can.
Yep.
Shoot it. That way, if there's any problems, you'll know right away.
Yep. We'll do one more question and take another quick break. David says, "Hello, Misha and Jay. Any update on possibility of new imports for the coming months or year? I have seen WBP on Instagram post on Instagram a 7.62 underfolder and several models of 5.56 AK. Do you think we will see these anytime soon? Thanks and stay safe." Thanks, David. You too.
I really don't. I think the mini Brill from FB is still supposed to come in, hopefully by the end of the year.
Yep.
The most recent import news I've heard is from JDI Sand Imports SIGs out of Switzerland. Those are imminent. Those are coming in a few batches over this month and the next. But it's so up in the air, I just wouldn't count anything until it's literally hitting the docks.
Yeah. Yeah, the COVID thing seems to have totally thrown that.
Yeah, even if they start to come out, there could be another outbreak. Factory could have to shut down. There's just too many variables. But
Right.
yeah, Arsenal, they just did the pre-order for their milled SAM7 SFs again,
Yep.
which were supposed to be out in April.
Yeah.
Well, this is September, and they're still not here. They're doing pre-orders. I'm interested to see the dates on them, if they're going to be 2020. One thing I've noticed that they said they're changing is the trigger group. So kind of makes me wonder there. But that's the most recent thing I heard, the Swiss and the Arsenals. Zastava, they have plans, but I don't know. I think right now they're just trying to keep up with the new 1.5 ZPAP.
Yeah. I think the thing of it is we have we have COVID crap, we have riot crap, and now in 2 months we have election crap.
Yep.
And all of that stuff, I mean, normally with an election cycle, we would start to see things really pick up the closer we got to the election. But all of this stuff started kicking off really once people were watching the news and seeing people punch each other in the face over toilet paper. So all of that started to go crazy really early on. And now we're probably in the worst as far as availability ever. So the thing of it is even if some of this stuff makes it out in the smaller batches, availability is not. I don't think this is going to be any of this stuff's going to be a this year thing. I don't have any inside information on that.
Oh, one other thing to point out: the exchange rate right now sucks between the U.S. and most European currencies.
Yeah,
and that's fine when you're buying an individual $1,000 gun, but when you're doing a $100,000 to couple of $1 million order, a small percentage in the exchange rate can really make a difference.
Yeah.
So I've heard that is another reason it's kind of right now. And of course that the value of the dollar is directly related to people punching others in the face for toilet paper.
Right.
And Chicago being on fire.
Right.
And now Wisconsin. I never thought we'd see a time where Wisconsin was on fire.
Yeah.
That's something else.
Yep.
Alrighty, folks. We'll be back in 5 seconds for you and a few minutes for us. Alrighty, we're back.
Yep.
And I believe this next one's going to be more of a you question.
Yeah, I think so. Matthew says, "What is the best way to refinish a really rough set of AK dong furniture? I was told to strip the old flaking shellac and apply a few coats of new amber shellac with 2 days of drying for each coat and a week of drying before shooting. Well, when I went shooting and noticed bubbles forming on the handguard after 40 rounds of slow fire, is there a specific type of shellac I should use, or should I use a completely different material?" And then he has a question about the big milsurp centerpiece, but I'll go ahead and answer the refinish question first. So when I've refinished AK furniture before, it wasn't AK Dong furniture, but it was just AK, I think it was just hardwood furniture. It wasn't laminated or anything, which would make a difference. What I did was I used Citrus Strip to strip all of the old layers off and just wash it really, really good, and then leave it out for around 24 hours to dry. You want to make sure you don't have any oil, like pull the metal fittings off, make sure you don't have any oil or anything that might seep back out, because it will like to seep on you. And if it seeps, that's probably when you're going to see the bubbling, because it hasn't really properly adhered to the wood and cured. But what I typically use is Zinsser Bullseye Amber Shellac with a 50-50 mix of denatured alcohol. And I like to personally, some people like to paint it on. Personally, I like using a Preval sprayer or Preval sprayer. You can get them at Home Depot for like $6. They're basically an aerosol container that has a little jar on the bottom that you can mix up. And you can put your mixture in there and just spray it on. Basically do a few light coats. I don't remember how many coats I used, 3 or 4, and I don't remember what the reapplication time was. It's been a few years since I've done it. But if you do that, follow the instructions, that denatured alcohol is going to help you dry really fast and a lot harder. And to date, none of the ones that I've done, I did my M92 that way and shot it smoking hot and didn't have any bubbling issues with it. So making sure that you've got a really good, really clean, dry surface to start with is probably going to be the biggest key, making sure it doesn't bubble, and then also making sure that you give it plenty of time to cure as well. And especially if you get a really heavy coat on it, I assume if you're trying to apply it without it being thinned, it may have gone on really heavy and not cured properly. But if you get a good mixture of it, some people cut them different ways. It's just how I've done it. But if you cut it right with the odor or with the denatured alcohol, it'll dry a lot faster that way.
I'd imagine, you said your M92, those were new handguards essentially. Mm-hmm. Lord knows if the handguards are in that bad of shape, how much stuff has been soaked into them over the years, from just sweat from hands, grease, oil. Lord knows. One
thing you can do with that as well is after you strip it, I generally will very lightly sand if I need to on wood. You don't want to sand a lot because it'll change the shape, and it could mess with the fitment on your metal bits. But one thing you could also do is just bake it in a very low temperature oven, or even just throw it in put something under it like a trash bag or something, and throw it in the dashboard of your car in the sun, and let all of that old oil and stuff seep out, because it's very possible, if it is that old, like you said, and is soaked in, that you're going to have some stuff soak out and is going to continue to soak out, especially when it heats up. So heating up, even just taking it out and shooting the shit out of it, will help a lot of that stuff seep out. Just make sure you wipe it dry and then clean it. Really well.
50 years can let a lot of stuff get really deep in the pores of the wood.
Yep. And I'm not an expert, totally amateur. I've just done it a few times myself. This is what I would do. I'm sure.
Well, the good thing is, if it's beat up Romy wood, there's not a lot to lose.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then he also says, now that I finally have a real income, I'm looking to buy a big centerpiece for my milsurp collection. I was thinking of getting a semi-auto LMG with a hard ceiling of around 5K, but would prefer to keep it around 4K. Do you have any suggestions on what guns/builders to get or what to avoid? I want something that is nice to shoot, so it doesn't just end up sitting around. I've been looking at Brin's, ZB26s, the Gorionov SG43 kit on Apex. And I'm not picky on country, but I do have an affinity for Polish and Czech guns. Thanks.
The cat is going for the headphones. One nice thing about a Brin, it's mag fed. Mm-hmm. If you get a belt fed, just know that you're getting a belt fed, and so you have to deal with loading belts, transporting belts, defective belts, sometimes unloading belts. Yeah,
and if you want to know
more complication.
Our general opinion on belt feds, I did a video on the DSA RPD and why belt feds are dumb.
So just know what you're getting into. I'd say a fun one to do is the 1919. One nice thing, they were always closed bolt, so mechanically you're not changing as much, and there are a ton of accessories out there for them, not to mention barrels, 8mm, 30-06, 7.62 NATO, probably others. All kinds of cool accessories. And in my experience, at least years ago, the collector community and the retail community that sold the 1919 stuff is really friendly. So I'd say 1919.
1919s are generally pretty obtainable. They would be obtainable right now as of this video for less than $4,000, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you should be able to pick one up for less than $3,000.
Yeah.
Just again, depending on the accessories it comes with, because sometimes like some of the tripods and stuff can be $1,000 themselves for rarity, but not always.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cool stuff there. I mean, the things like the MG42 or the M53, that's a whole thing themselves. Again, the Bren's a thing. I don't know who to tell you. I'm amazed at the prices Bren's are bringing now, and I don't think they're worth it for what they are. That's why I don't have one. But yeah, that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in RPD. It's sad the PKMs, they used to actually be obtainable, believe it or not, and those are cool, but those are gone now. Yeah. I don't know if I'd do the Goryanov. I've heard mixed things about those builds, but hey, up to you. They're also extremely heavy, so I don't know your situation, but keep in mind that usually if you have to drive to the range, that's about the only gun you're bringing that day.
Yeah, right. Unless you get one of the trailer mounts for it, then you can just drive it behind you on the trailer. And
would that be? I guess that would be considered like open carry.
Yeah, if you're an open carry station, it'd be a problem. I'm sure the cops won't have any problem with that.
No, not at all.
Colin says, I'm about to be enlisted in the Army, and I was wondering what 7.62 guns I should buy that would hold their value or increase in the next 4 years.
You don't see a lot of new 7.62 guns. Mostly it's...
Hold value or increase in value. I'm having a hard time even finding one that's that I think is gonna decrease in value or not hold its value.
I'd say FALs are always there's a lot of choices there, and you can still find some neat ones. Maybe the HK MR 7.62.
So you're thinking 7.62 by 51, and I'm thinking 7.62 by 39.
He didn't specify, yeah.
So
if he's thinking 7.62 by 9, that's just AK.
Yep.
Then any import.
Just about any.
Or Bren 2 or Galil Ace, any of those. Yep. But he said he was joining the military, and typically 7.62 by itself means NATO.
Yep.
So I was kind of thinking bigger.
Well, it could be both. So any AK or...
Yeah.
Stuff like the C308s, I don't know what the availability is like on these.
They did a batch recently, but
I've always thought that they were undervalued. I know there are people that have mixed feelings about them, but if you can get one really cheap, I don't see it.
No, it's not going to become like this giant collector's item.
It's not.
But I thought I won the Vepr FM 308.
Okay, yeah.
They're still pretty like 1600-ish.
Yep.
That's surely going to go up.
Yep. That's a good point.
Yep. Ditto for like 7.6239 Vepr.
Yeah, anything like PTRs and stuff like that, they are what they are. I mean, I don't think that they're going to go down really.
No.
At the same time, they're not. Really,
well, it depends. As long as you don't pay panic prices. If you're paying a fair price, you'll be. But if you get carried away and pay double what it's worth, don't expect it to double again in the future.
Sure.
Yeah, it's other guns like the Colt LE 901, they're gone. So a lot of the things that I would have said, and there's the Bren 2 and the Galil Ace and X39. Those are about the only kind of non-AKs out there. So yeah.
Yep. Travis says, "Hey guys, after trading here and there, wheeling and dealing for 6 months, I finally have an SGL 21. I started with a PSA AR-15 and AR-10 lower 2. My question is, what all do I need to do to convert it to an AK-103? It's a Legion trade rifle, FYI. Also, one more question. Do you think the M17 and M18 were the best possible choice for the XM17 handgun program, or would another pistol have been a better choice? Thanks for all you do, fellas."
Well, SGL-21, you didn't say side folder, so I'm going to assume it's a fixed stock. Really, there's not much you need to do. You can get a Russian muzzle brake if you want. I mean, it looks very similar to the US one that they come with, but sure. Ditto for the furniture if you really wanted to, but that's kind of the point of the SGLs, is they were pretty much there. Maybe try to find some Russian 30-round AK-103 mags. If you want to take the plunge and convert it into a side folder, you can do that, but the parts are going to cost you $400, and finding a competent gunsmith is going to cost probably the same. And if you find an incompetent gunsmith who chops up your receiver, you're shit out of luck, because you have to angle the receiver and you have to cut notches in the front for the catch and everything. You need someone who really knows what they are doing, because if you try to install that left side folder wrong, it's just bad, and you've wrecked a gun.
Right.
So if you're happy with it being a fixed stalker, it's pretty much good to go. There's not a whole lot else to do.
Yep. Better choice for the XM17 handgun
Yeah,
program.
that's why I went ahead and brought mine out. Where did I put it? Oh, over there. Yeah. Why not? Just trying to have gun porn on the table. And the truth is, I don't know. I wasn't in the military. I didn't test these. I will say that they are nice shooting guns.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
Surprisingly.
yeah. On the other hand, I would say actually I like shooting this better than a current Glock, but the current Glock has such a track record behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I personally, I thought that there was a chance they'd go with a Glock, which is probably a foolish thought of mine. Basically from the track record standpoint, honestly, I think that they should have gone with the Glock personally. Because there has been problems with the M17 already, notoriously, and no one who knows anything about SIG's history was surprised by that. So.
Yep. But for all intents and purposes, Sig Sauer Inc. is a U.S. company.
Yep.
And Glock, while there is Glock USA, it's still, the commands come from on high in Austria.
Right.
So I think buying the Sig was essentially buying American.
Yeah, I totally get why they did it from that standpoint, but yeah, I personally think Glocks are. I think Glock is a better company than SIG is by a long shot. So, even with the U.S. made thing.
On the other hand, SIG was hungrier, and they have gone more for the military market. Glock is law enforcement. I have a feeling that SIG was more compliant with military's requests for changes. Glock seems very stuck. I mean, it took enough just to convince him to put a freaking manual safety on the Glock.
Right. Yeah. William says, Misha and Jay, keep up the good work. I just purchased a Bren 2 MS 14-inch in 7.62x39. It is absent of the bayonet lug. Did CZ have to omit the lug due to ATF regulations? Now, apparently one of the bonuses of posting one of our in our Q&A is you actually already got your answer from Military Arms Channel, who commented back and answered your question in a different thread and says, no, they may have removed them for banned states, I don't know, but all 14-inch guns I've seen, not in banned states, including my own, all have bayonet lugs. The guns are technically pistols and thus not subject to 922R regulation. And you replied back and said, okay, that's good. I live in a free state. I'm picking up my Bren 2 MS 14-inch this weekend. Thanks for the info.
I can add that that's definitely not for banned states, because that wouldn't matter. Anywhere that the bayonet lug would have mattered, they don't allow pistols like that anyway. Like, it's much harder to get a pistol in California than it is a rifle, and that's how most states treat it. Plus, it still has a threaded barrel flash hider, which is all the same, and effectively has a side folding thing.
Yeah. So,
again, as I said kind of earlier, the 5.56 is made for the Czech military, so there's a certain standard there. The 7.6239 are made for export and therefore contract. I would imagine no one asked for a bayonet lug, so they never have done one.
Yeah, makes sense.
And what would it be? I mean, NATO sounds kind of weird if you're doing that caliber. Would it be an AK bayonet?
Yeah.
So.
Dappa Dan, I like that name. That's a good one. Dappa Dan says, thanks for all you guys do. What would be the one Sig Sauer import you would recommend purchasing? How does one acquire a Sig Sauer these days? Thanks again and take care. You too, Dappa Dan. Thank you.
Well, I mean, the guns are virtually all the same as far as the base gun. I mean, the Sniper has the long, heavy barrel. The 5.50 PE90 style has the standard military. The 5.51 either has a 14.3 or 17.8 and the 5.53 either has, well, an 8.9, an 11.9, or a 13.7. So whatever you want. There's certainly more of the 5.53s because those have been coming in longer.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a shooter, just a shooter, I would say 5.51 LB.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my
exactly
favorite.
what I was going to say too. Yep.
But collectability, of course, it has to be the 5.50 diopters, 21-inch barrel, bipod, green, gray finish.
Yeah.
That's the quintessential gun people want.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for if you were going to get one and that was going to be you're mainly concerned about shooting, yeah, agreed. 5.51 LB. That's my personal favorite configuration.
Yeah, you're not losing anything. It's got plenty long enough barrel at nearly 18 inches. You're fine.
Yep.
There, you can mount things on it. It's not light, but it's not heavy. The 5.50, well, I love the gun, is very front heavy, very long, and the extra barrel really doesn't give you any better performance.
Yeah.
Aside from a longer sight radius, before anyone says anything.
Yeah. And the question, how does one acquire a SIG Sauer these days in very, very general terms?
You get on a pre-order list and, call up JDI.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to basically just get on the pre-order list because they sell out long before they hit the U.S. shores. Basically pre-order, put down 500 bones and forget you did it, and then a year later you'll get a call when they come in. To date, I think, knock on wood, everything Dave has said is coming in and taken pre-orders on has come in. And if it didn't, it might have been a weird, odd thing where they changed it, but the gun came, but maybe not quite as described. But he's pretty much fulfilled all of his commitments, even if they have been late, which isn't his fault. I'm sure he'd love to have 10 guns come in every day from Switzerland. It's what they ship.
Yep. Michael says, is there a good way to get a good cheek or chin weld on an underfolder AK? It seems that you have to put more of your chin on the folding stock, as underfolders seem a little lower than standard side folder or solid stocks. You do your best. I always put paracord on my underfolders. That helps give a little bit of cushion. I think the underfolder on me runs to just above my lower jawline whenever I'm aiming, and maybe a little bit higher than that. And that's about the best. I mean, depending on how your face is shaped and what size you are and all that stuff, it's going to just vary. That's the best thing I know. As far as like aftermarket parts, I'm not aware of any kind of cheek riser for an underfolder. I'm sure someone has made one.
I think there's something, but yeah, it's a compromise, because the idea with the underfolder was you could unfold it and unfold it with a 30-round mag in, but most of these things you buy to add, you lose that.
Right, yeah. So that's sort of the trade-off, like I said, of going with an underfolder, is you have a very compact package whenever it's stowed, and it can be operated with 30-round mag in it. But it's not. I hate underfolders.
That's the reason that was a special. I mean, that's why most were made with a fixed stock. A fixed stock is meant for regular infantry, regular guard, regular everything. Underfolders were made to be used by specialists, either as kind of like a PDW before the Crink came along, or paratroopers or mountain troops. Right. But that was we really need a gun that can be a foot shorter, and I don't know, there's not even a cord there. He keeps attacking the pocket with the mic in it, but there's nothing hanging out. It's weird. Anyway, but keep in mind that wasn't something they went, oh, underfolder, that's great. They went, well, we have no other choice. Yeah. Okay, we'll do it. Right.
Yeah, I like the way that they look, and I have them because they're quintessential AK, but I would never grab an underfolder over a side folder, ever.
No, yeah, I think that's why with, again, a gun like this, they went to a side folding stock that, while the ergonomics aren't perfect, are infinitely better. It's also a lighter gun. If you notice, underfolders are heavier than fixed stock, as a general rule.
Yeah. Some of the comments will say probably there's some aftermarket cheap.
Oh, I know there is. I've heard of it. But I mean, it's not a military thing, and you are losing some functionality.
Antigonus says, you sometimes mention, quote-unquote, the gun shop. Do you own or work in a store? I know you sell a few items through Gunbroker, but I couldn't find a physical OVA store through Google. Is there anywhere else you sell stuff online besides Gunbroker?
Pretty much Gunbroker, because that's it keeps me plenty busy. And of course, at the beginning of the year, it was a madhouse, and now it's pretty quiet because getting inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah. For more, you can check out our welcome to the channel video we did a couple of years ago, which we probably didn't do an update on, but the information therein is still valid.
Yeah. It's sort of we did sort of a Q&A, and we cover the storefront, all that stuff.
All that stuff. Just here for the ending, it's the opening video. So
long story short, it's all Gunbroker.
Yep.
And his second question is, suppose a collector has a few $1,000s to spend today and will have a few $1,000 more to spend right after the election, i.e. between November and January. What do you think they should prioritize for today versus leaving until after the election? Expensive pre-ban stuff, recent out-of-production stuff like the Beretta ARX100, in-production stuff like the Brin? Or do you think the inflation/unavailability will be the worst?
Well, it seems like the inflation is the worst with current or recent stuff.
Yes.
I've actually noticed some really good prices on pre-bans like 80s, Chinese, and whatnot. Because that's how it is. They go up, they go down. They've already hit their point. That's why I recently picked up another Valmet. Yep. Also, Milsurp, the bolt actions, pistols. That's actually why I picked up this here Luger a couple of months ago. The price was right, and a few years ago, Lugers were bananas.
Yep.
So that's what I do. I look for Milsurp. I look for old pre-bans, weird stuff like that. Because right now, it's either the current production AKs, ARs, or the currently imported, or the recently non-importable, like the Russian. This would not be my time to be buying Russian. I know everyone's argument is, well, they're not going to bring any more in. That's true, but what's here is here, and the prices probably will either go stable, and you might even find a good deal down the road.
Right.
But they're not going to get cheaper by a whole lot.
Typically, the panic wave is... the panic happens, availability dries up on the things that everybody wants in a panic situation, which is usually AKs, ARs. The prices skyrocket on them. People start selling off their old Milsurps, their pre-bans, all that stuff to buy the very expensive now, which is not normally expensive, AKs and ARs and modern production stuff. So it's usually whenever you can start finding good deals on the Milsurps and the pre-bans, and also in a lot of ways, like the really high-end stuff.
Agreed. Yeah.
Is typically stuff like my 627 was super easy to get a hold of. My top break revolver was generally easy to get a hold of because it's a top break revolver. Like nobody cares about that stuff. So anything, or like even the Sand Swiss stuff, isn't going to be impacted by panic. So usually that stuff, the time to buy that type of stuff is now, I think.
Yeah, it tends to be less.
And then when people start having to pay credit card bills off after the panic dies away is usually when you'll start seeing the modern stuff come back out as, you know, the market catches up.
Even besides credit cards, a lot of people will buy a gun because so-and-so told them it was great, or this channel loved it, so they bought it, and they found out, okay, objectively it might be a good gun, but it's just not my speed.
Sure. Yeah, there you go. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's usually the post-wave panic wave whenever people
you'll see some Arsenals, some Colts. You'll see a lot of weird guns probably come out that people bought. Bren 2s maybe.
I bet Bren 2s, but that's the one I was thinking. Right?
Yeah. I think they'll kind of go down because right now people are paying well over $2,000 for the carbine and basically that for the pistol, and I think that'll settle down.
Yeah. So pretty much Milsurps, pre-bans.
Yep.
Stuff that hasn't.
You know, who up north here, my friend, you know, the guy, he was saying they took in a transfer for a customer who bought a matching with mum Japanese paratrooper on Gunbroker at $1,800.
Wow.
Yeah, and years ago they were selling for near $3,000.
Yeah.
So crazy. Things like that, it's kind of a good time.
Yeah. G says, what are the best 7.62x39 AK muzzle devices you guys have used? What would you recommend to someone looking to reduce recoil without increasing noise and concussion too much for indoor range use?
Well, and with that, that's why I brought this out again. This is getting a multi-thing. I really think, considering you don't want concussion or extra noise, the good old AK-74 break is, if not the best. They're affordable. They don't look bad. They've got a chamber back here with asymmetric vent holes. They've got a port up here. they work really well for recoil control while not going crazy on concussion, because we've had guns that have just amazing muzzle devices on them, but then when you're not shooting it, when you hand it to a friend and you're standing to the side, you go, oh God.
Yeah.
Because that has to go somewhere. That force doesn't just magically disappear into the TARDIS void. It's getting directed somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you're indoors, be a good neighbor. Don't be that guy in the rain, which you don't sound like you want to be. But I personally just like the 74 style.
Yeah. Yeah, that would probably be my number one choice as well. Basically, what you want to look for is, in my opinion, is a combination device. So something that works, that advertises as a combination device versus muzzle brake. And usually things that advertise as flash hider aren't going to offer any type of recoil control. Muzzle brakes aren't going to offer any kind of protection from blast. So look for combo devices. There was one that CNC Warrior sold called, I think they just called it a Russian style or a Molot style brake. That was a combo device that had a flash hider and was ported as well. One that I really like is the Strike Industries J-Comp. One of the really nice things about it is it's really inexpensive. They're usually around $30, I think. And I have multiples, some on 7.62 by 39 guns, some on 223s. And the current Gen 2 is compatible with the Furfran's Blast Shield. So if you wanted to, if you're shooting outdoors and you wanted to just run it, just the bare muzzle brake itself. I also don't find that with just the brake, it's particularly blasty. It's definitely blasty, but I don't find it to be horrible compared to some of the other brakes that I've had.
I thought of one.
What's that?
The Bulgarian 4-piece.
Yeah, there you go.
It's primarily a flash hider, but it actually, because of its weight alone and it has a chamber, it works as a good brake.
Yeah.
It's not very flashy, not very concussion-y, and this might be helpful, they make it in both 24 mil and 14 mil.
Yeah.
The only downside, they're kind of spendy.
Right. Yeah.
$80 to $100. But I think a lot of muzzle brakes these days are. Sorry, just came to mind.
Yeah. The on the J-Comp, you can get that Furfran's Blast Shield thing, and what it is basically an externally mounted shield. It's not a silencer, but it will push the concussion downrange, and they're pretty effective. I've got a couple on some of my guns, and they usually my short barrel guns. So I usually will have a device that will take a blast shield because it does help keep.
And you see that with like 50 cal brakes too. They direct the force downrange with the bullet, not to the sides, and they work well because they're 50 cal. But yeah, in a realistic shooting situation, not competition or whatever, you don't want to put your blast up or sideways.
Yeah. So combination devices. That was the last question.
Alrighty.
So I'll have, by the time this video goes up, there will be a new Q&A thread. Again, it'll be usually around 8 weeks before we do another one.
Oh, now you get off. I was going to spin him around.
But it'll be up there. Like I said, if you're just watching this and aren't a patron, $1 and up gets you access to the Q&As that we do when we do them.
Yep. Like we said at the beginning, $1, $5, and if you can, just like, share, and subscribe is also good, and feel free to post below, and someone will probably answer your question.
Yep, more than likely. So, yeah, thanks everybody who asked questions. We always enjoy doing these, and hope you feel like you got your $1 worth out of it, for sure.
And we'll be back probably sometime early, mid-November to do the next one of these. It seems like about 2 months is kind of how these roll out.
Yep.
It's a good thing we didn't go to the ranch today. It started raining, so good Q&A day.
Hot, humid, and rainy. So.
Alrighty, guys, this is Misha.
This is Jake.
And we'll catch you very soon next time.
Bye, y'all.